first off, a little bit about FiG. It's a project that Suzanne and our colleagues, some of them whom are here, Emma Westcott and Helen Kennedy, cooked up in order to try to infuse a feminist agenda into what is going on in the game studies community more broadly, as well as to give support for women working in the field that might not yet have encountered some of the work that feminism can do. So I don't know what's going on with the slide. It didn't look like that this morning. It's good. Just ignore the slide. Here, I'll go back. So what we did is construct a project under the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council umbrella. And the project that we have is called a Partnership Development Grant. And so what we're trying to do is exactly what the title says, develop a partnership. And the idea here is to build partnerships sort of on an international scale around the topic of feminists and games. And we're going to tell you a little bit of why feminists and games. And so what we wanted to do is bring together research here collectively, including new research questions, and then scale up to ask for further funding for a full partnership grant. And the full partnership grant, why you want that is because you get more money and you're actually able to fund a research agenda, which we think could powerfully sort of take this field in a new direction.
That's over 5 years.
Over 5 years, yeah. Yes.
So, yes.
Yes, good job. So what we're doing in the next 12 months is to grow the network and to make seed funding available to folks who are doing interesting work that is feminist in aspirations, that supports women and girls in any aspects of game culture, research or development, including women making games. And our purpose is to support that kind of work and to extend this network to feminists in games. There we go.
So, why it's the FiG versus FiG question. Why feminists and games don't like games. We know, those of us who are older, know that the old Adlerminster agenda has never been very much a success. Gender is, for anyone who's worked in this field, a highly inflammatory topic. It inspires fear and loathing and often violence. It's a really difficult area to work in. We really have learned a lot from reading FiG-ure, who's a German feminist scholar who's worked with women and memory work and recollecting their lives and understanding their everyday lives very critically. And FiG-ure's point is that if women had to be aware every day of the myriad ways in which gender inflects and disadvantages them, and gender inflects their interactions, their possibilities, their experiences, they would actually be driven insane. So and you will notice as soon as you start to go back and read any of the feminist literature or doing this work, that you actually start to get emotionally destabilized. So the point of FiG-ure for us is that thinking about it and understanding gender issues, gender inequities, is never enough. All it will do is harm you. You have to move into action. And so our point here is we're not just going to contend with dealing with women in games. We have to have a feminist agenda which is explicitly tied to acting to change these conditions. Otherwise, it actually harms us more than helps us. So the context of work, if you add women, the context of the work remains the same. So here, this is an anonymous post talking about what it's like to work in a male-dominated field. We have been told many times, all we have to do is increase the number of women in games, the kind of games will change, and how the field will change. But here you have the experience of someone talking about how it is and how that environment just becomes oppressive for larger numbers of women. So the add women agenda does not work. It has to be a transformative agenda. Okay, so what we're looking at, and it's really important to understand that this is global and this is historical. It's been happening forever. This is about veterinary science. Now I know when I'm in business of doing things with animals, only virtually do we do this. But this is just a little topic. Just even the title tells you the word reproduction. It's a love affair. Why? Because it's not a money affair. And it stopped being a money affair as soon as the number of women in the veterinary business, it's increased beyond the number of men. And their concern is, oh my God, we're getting more women, that means our pay will go down, and that's what happens. It's status migration, we see it in every field, in every discipline, in every country, and we have seen it forever. So it doesn't help to get more women, that just means the status in the field drops out and the pay is reduced. So, and here
if you thought education could save you,
yeah.
It actually doesn't. So this is from a recent AAUW publication in 2012, and you'll notice if you have a professional degree, the pay gap between men and women is actually increased. At the lower end of education, you're more likely to earn quite more similar kinds of salaries.
So that is not to say don't carry on getting educated.
No.
Just to say this is what you're looking at, baby. It doesn't get better with more education for women, it gets worse. Okay, so women can be like men, only cheaper, yay. And that's why this talk is about understanding and moving understanding into action-oriented projects. So we very simplistically have devised what we like to call a compass, is brand new concept. Jen is very much. 4 points of orientation that we're going to talk about as a way of organizing this little introductory talk. We'll stop, look, listen, and read.
So stop, breathe, suspend business as usual. Refuse to let your sort of normal self take over in that kind of Frege-Hausian moment of not refusing to look and see. And sort of refuse that everything is fun, and we'll take you along here. Stop kind of reproducing the same kind of research, and this is what we really want to refuse. For 20 years, we've been saying the same things about gender and games research. That girls like to play games about school, that we like pink, that we like non-competition and non-violence, so we like pet games, and that we like to collaborate and share with our friends. You know, who doesn't love Barbie horses? So we actually think that this is not really playing at all. And unless we do some work to, under these conditions, where we have shifting terrain, changed objects, innovative technological turns, the fundamentals mean that we're still producing the same kind of research. So we want to stop doing that.
Okay, the other thing we have to stop is stop assuming that we know what gender is and that we know what women are like. Gender, as Judith so nicely puts it, you're doing it now. So whatever it is you're doing, that's gender. We can do different things too. I think what is really important for us is that this kind of theorization has been around in feminist literature since before you guys were born, most of you. And there is no justification for ignoring the fact that gender is what is enacted as gender, as what is performed as gender. That's a field that is open.
And shifting. So we also want to stop pretending that this is a new issue. Women have been actively and often violently prevented from enjoying equal opportunities in every field that matters, not just for decades, but for millennia. And this is an example of a woman who was trying to run the Boston Marathon in 1967, and she was being pushed away and having her number torn off.
But no, she completed it.
Yes, she did. Okay.
Last thing. Yes, refuse doormat status. I know it seems like we would like to pretend that we don't, but we do. Not only do we allow ourselves to be stepped on routinely, just don't say, just defer, but also stop watching other women get treated like doormats and doing the same nothing. That's imperative for us all. We actually have to not allow that to happen. We all know those stories. Some of us have even participated in it. The fact that you go home and throw up later is no justification. Stop doing it. That's the last stop.
So now we want our second orientation point is to look and look around, see who's here, what are people doing, who's in this room, how are we representing each other and this field. There's a really lovely quote, woman is mere nature as soon as she lowers her gaze, for she abandons control of her body. is defenseless and at the mercy of the masculine gaze. So we want all eyes forward. Look up. And we're asking also to pay attention to who's in this room, but also who's in the larger kinds of game community. And we're just going to do a couple of looking points now.
Let's do this one. This is fine.
It is, but I don't have a clue.
Oh, okay. Jen's getting those there.
Yes.
So this is Anita Sarkeesian, who does numbers frequency. It's a little 2-minute example of how much you can see just by simply looking once you're sufficiently looking.
This is for everybody.
Oh, you're so bad.
Basically, we've helped dim the lights slightly.
Yes.
So we can't see the
Yes. In order to support our
Yeah, we will turn the lights off.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's one way. That's cool.
It's okay. Let the light.
That's good. Yeah.
Look, can't find it.
Got it.
I have to show you now.
Oh, don't want to see it.
It's too bad. This is a long way. Oh, you know, makes sense.
It's been a few years since I've checked in with the Bechdel test for women in movies, so I thought it'd be a good time to look in on Hollywood and see if there's been any substantial improvement in women's
Somebody's getting nails.
to apply the test in films that have been nominated for Best Picture in the 2011 Academy Award. Since the Oscars are widely regarded as the best of the best, at least as determined by the industry itself. But before I get to that, here's a quick refresher on what the Bechdel test is and how it works. The Bechdel test is a very basic gauge to measure women's relevance to a plot and generally to assess female presence in Hollywood movies. It was popularized by Alison Bechdel in her comic Guides to Watch Out For back in 1985. In order to pass the test, a film just needs to fulfill these 3 very simple criteria. A movie has to have at least 2 or more women in it who have names, who talk to each other about something besides a man. Pretty simple, right? I mean, this is really the absolute lowest that we could possibly set the bar for women's meaningful presence in movies. Let's remember that this was made as a bit of a joke to make fun of the fact that there are so few movies with significant female characters in them. The reason the test has become so important in recent years is because it actually does highlight a serious and ongoing problem within the entertainment industry. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the Academy Award Best Picture nominees for 2011 and see how they measure up to the Bechdel test. First up, The Descendants. It's a story of a father pulling his family through a crisis. The mother is basically fridged before the opening credits even finish rolling to provide a catalyst for the father figure's growth. This film does pass the test because of a handful of brief interactions between female characters, including between the 2 daughters, Alex and Scotty. Moneyball is a story of an American League baseball team centered around their general manager, Billy Beane. It fails the test badly, not even having 2 female characters speak to each other at all. Even so, it's a surprisingly funny and captivating movie. Tree of Life is a more experimental film about a boy and his family. It fails the test because the only brief scene where 2 women talk, the conversation is about the death of the family's son. While it's true there's very little dialogue in the film as a whole, the father and son do speak to each other on multiple occasions. Hugo is a whimsical film about an orphan boy trying to solve a mystery left by his father. And while there are 2 main female characters who speak to each other, their conversation is always in relation.
Okay, well, you get through. 2 women, they have names, they talk to each other about something other than men. That's simple kind of looking, and if you look at the short version of this, which is what we want to show you, surprisingly effective in telling us that there's almost no films that pass that test.